Hello guys and welcome to TFT World Cup final day, game number 2. Enjoy.
If you want a high variance game, you're going to be able to come out of it from the gates. We've certainly seen teams losing out by just having bad choices across the squad from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, we'll have to see. This 2-1 augment selection going to be big for the game as Prismatic can have that, big variant swing overall. We'll have to see if any of these big changes come through. Prismatic Ticket being one that a lot of players are picking up, using it not only to hit the 2 costs, but also to grief the opposing rerollers.
And I just think here to know as well, looking at the cameras here, you can look like how much more relaxed they look on the Wolves side of things. And we also just saw how relaxed Toronto Tokyo was compared to the rest of his teammates, right? So really interesting things to keep in mind here as we are going to be opening up in towards this game number 2.
Well, I think that relaxation comes from being able to deny the reality that the Wolves came into, which is Vitality. Up until this point, you could legitimately say they are a team that can't be beat in the competition. Now you know that's definitely not true. It becomes much more realistic to do it again.
Interesting thing here as well, making great use of the gold opener, but Casanova holding on to the Warwick pair over some of the other options at play instead. Something that we don't see a lot of is the Warwick being used in the early game because the awkwardness of Frost being a really awkward trait to fit into a board cohesively.
Yeah, it's kind of unique that he's holding on to that. I mean, the only kind of out that we know of right now for Warwick is going to be around that corrupted Vamp Scepter, and this is going into a Prismatic lobby, so at best it's what, the Living Forge, getting like a bunch of different artifacts, and I mean, maybe you hit that one first and you can go for it.
We also saw the Fnatic boys having a game where Weixin was forced to play around an awkward dummy leading him in towards that way reroll line. And as we've been talking about so much here, with the current pool sizes, free cost rerolls are something that we do not expect here. That's also something that when you look over across the board here, we're looking at the team statistics. Like there are not a ton of teams. The only team that has played a free cost line is Twisted Minds that played a Wukong Syndra game, so not even a full-on free cost reroll.
Syndra line, yeah, of course.
We've certainly got a chance to pick up the Syndra here, of course, with a Encounter Crown. Wandering Trainer, I believe, has been offered to a couple of players that are willing to go a more risky route. Certainly 3 attached emblems, at least one of them is going to be good, right?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because getting the Syndra on 2-1 is so important. Setsi looking at this, but the Prismatic version a little bit worse because you're losing some of the kind of power economy into this Jeweled Gauntlet, which is not a very good item for Syndra when you look at the deltas. You want just mana generation and attack speed. AP does not do nearly as well.
It's actually also really unfortunate. You're looking at the spot here. Satsuko is really looking towards potentially a Kog'Maw reroll line, something he's been really been championing for this team as well all week so far, which also kind of has led in towards his awkward placement because this Kog'Maw line is a line where very often you normally play around trying to get towards that like 5th, 6th place finish in this situation, this format, but will now get on towards a super powerful line here with the Syndra.
Yeah, it's at least getting a good amount of time in the early rounds, thanks to a decently strong board. Of course, the Encounter Emblem means that we'll be able to see Encounter 4 a little bit later on, but for the time being at least, it activates the minimal version of the trait and gets Setsuko a lot of time to get a lot of stacks.
Yeah, getting the stacks important. The Rumble 2 being an anchor for that board, such a huge hit for the early stages of the game. And if Setsi can find a bunch of these stacks early, even though you have the JG, I mean, if you can get the board together, it's still good. It's still Syndra. It's just not as likely to cap out for that first place.
Right, I think that's something that has really been one of the major adaptations over the past week or so, right, has been the fact that we've been moving away from those AP items you're talking about. Hence that JG, not necessarily a great item for the Syndra, but there are so many ways of getting that off in towards the late stage of the game with so many different charms giving you access to either full-on salvaging or reforges and removers.
I do want to bring Shelty into the conversation here because, of course, we talked about at the beginning of the game how much variance there'll be between the good and the bad augments coming out the Prismatic side. We've got the support golem in place, a huge amount of extra frontline there for him.
He's level 5, 13 gold cast. He's so rich and pushing the tempo incredibly high.
Yeah, that is massive, and that's going to make Setsi take a big hit after a win in the very first round. It's not going to be able to keep that streak. We briefly saw Lisao's board having Shimmer Scale. We were talking about ways to play for the first place. Shimmer Scale is one of those prismatics that can absolutely get you there with all that extra econ early on. And it was the Mogul's Mail, which I think is one of the more preferable versions just because it gives you that stable front line.
Yeah, and again, keep in mind, he will be getting a Gambler's Blade further down the road as well. Once you have that economy in that, and it becomes a very powerful attack speed item in of its own, as long as you sit above that 30 gold mark he's holding for right now.
I really like this early board here, with the Mogul's Mail from before, actually having a strong enough board to maybe get this one procced and keep yourself actually win streaking as well as generating gold.
Yeah, we briefly also saw the open fort from YGQF on the prismatic ticket. Syndra has been the bread and butter for YGQF. That's exactly what you want to play from that prismatic ticket angle. And we'll also potentially see him griefing the 2 costs of any other player trying to reroll in a line.
That was something we saw yesterday as well from the Chinese team, from Falcon. We saw Here We Go being like the dedicated griefer on stage 2, on stage 3, very often going for those complete full-out open forts into a reroll line, and it ended up costing the Falcons the game because they opted to skip that golden quest, and they end up not having a win-out play here. But also Serene with a very weak board here as well, also in a semi-open fort situation. That's something we saw last game from Vitality. When that loss streak gets broken by your own teammates, it does put you in a bit of turmoil.
But of course, we've still got a very favorable situation for the Wolves here. They control both win streaks and both loss streaks right now. So they can, like we talked about before, Cass, make the choices as to which one they want to preserve.
Yeah, I mean, this is a massive disadvantage for Vitality as far as economy is concerned, right? You've got the streaks fully controlled by all 4 members of the Wolves. However, this is not unbeatable. We saw Fnatic control this against Weibo, and Weibo actually found the win in the game where this did happen. So even though it is advantage Wolves in their early game, it doesn't mean that we count out Vitality yet.
You see here now Chelsea picking up that reforger as well here, getting rid of that chain vest immediately, trying to get an offensive component to go alongside of this glove here. Could have slammed that steadfast heart for even more tempo in the front line, opting against doing that, trying to go for an even higher cap.
And we can see the open fort there, looking to gather the resources to make sure that prismatic ticket will pay off longer term. Have a few bits and pieces in place for the time being, but very happy to keep that loss streak going.
Going up against the big and mighty on the other side, which is going to be a lot of early tempo. We can see that is still on the loss streak.
It's the 2 loss streakers against each other.
Yeah, they're going to end up keeping the loss streak for the prismatic ticket, which makes the most sense. So they are going to lose one of their streaks, not able to full streak into Krugs with everything, just as Vitality had to give one up earlier. It looks like the win streaks also having to stop each other. So no big advantages from the Wolves going into the neutrals round.
Also worth noting here as well, right? This meant that all 4 matchups going on here were team matching, you see on the left side of the screen right now. So a big round here for the streak management of this series. And right now it is only Wolves that have control of what could be 2 potential big streaks out of the game here. You have YGQF at the bottom on the loss streak, Shelter at the top, and really continuing where he left off last game on that win streak.
Yeah, very impressive. From the Vitality side of things, Toronto and Setsuko, they've got the beginnings of something there. And Soju, of course, to a loss streak before and is doing it so here again. Vitality definitely taking a backseat from the early game. We'll see if they can turn it around as we come towards stage 3.
Milk also on the prismatic ticket looking to fight for the Syndra. We have to look at Milk versus YGQF when we get towards 3-2, when we look towards these prismatic ticket roll downs. Both of them actually similarly on pace when it comes to gold. Milk was able to catch up, both of them making 50.
And here we are going into the Croc round that you're talking about here. Soju currently starting to stack up a bit of Sheercraft as well. We saw him kind of have that in play last game when he was playing around the Warrior Preserver line. Just having as much power into that as possible opens up a few different lines. Something like the Jinx reroll we haven't seen a lot of as well, but also haven't seen that great success.
Well, Toronto, we haven't checked in directly for a little while, on a 4-round win streak with level up as well. If you're talking about players who can get a lot of value out of having a lot of gold in the bank, you have to push levels and get up to the very tippy top of what's possible. This feels very promising for Vitality.
Yeah, this is another player who can look towards win out, right? If you're able to push to 8, find everything immediately, and then continue to push levels, it's a huge way that Toronto Tokyo can come out big for this team. Looking right now at Toronto and Milk as kind of the big 2, if Milk is able to find his 3 stars instead of just having to use that prismatic ticket for griefing.
We did see a level up play coming out of Fnatic in their elimination match the other day, right? Did not look strong at all when they were eliminated here. Stisha was unable to really find the route out of stage 2, stage 3. And then when he started going towards that level 8, he did not find anything on the roll down here. So this second round of augments will be incredibly important, especially because Casanova, Toronto, Tokyo's items right now, they're leaning AD.
100%. They are leaning towards AD. He finds a Gwen already, so potentially can go towards the Warrior Preservers, but of course Fiora is the crux of that composition. We jump on with Lee Sao, offered a Nasus, a couple of 4 costs here, at level 6 to try and play with. Not having a full carry online, not having an early Syndra like we saw from him in the previous game.
You know, the Gambler's Blade has just dropped through, so has at least the extra mana generation. But yes, has spent relatively aggressively, but the board is actually holding very well. The Vanguard's there, upper Vanguard 4, giving a lot of time.
Yeah, also worth noting here, Milk, as we've been talking about, currently on a loss streak, opening up for this ever so important free to roll down with that prismatic ticket here. And a big factor as well is how many free rerolls does he have in the bank to work with as well. Because the sooner he finds that Syndra 2 and can stop rolling, the easier it will be for him to kind of rebuild his economy. And we're going right into Silver's.
Silver's YGQF does end up getting rid of Pandora's Bench, finds Recombobulator. There's not going to be anything on the board to actually do, so this is going to be rolling for days. 9 free shop rerolls to go alongside the prismatic ticket. It's just every reroll possible, just going to start sending it down alongside Milk.
Yeah, and also it's worth noting, Milk hits Syndra 2 while he's over 50 goals and can stop rolling or decide to go deeper into tanks, trying to get closer to that Syndra free. But again, prioritizing the economy a little bit more here, at least trying to figure out the board state at hand at first.
Yeah, he's got another one as well. On the left side, as you said, the multicast are starting to come together as well. So Prismatic Ticket versus Prismatic Ticket. It certainly seems like Milk's done pretty well out of this one.
Milk being able to look at YGQF and see that this is multi-strikers instead. 6 Cassidans, 1 duplicator. Milk also having a duplicator on his bench. Milk rolled a little bit deeper, didn't necessarily find significantly more than YGQF. YGQF, in fact, finding 6 copies of Cassidans, so we're going to have to keep our eyes on that multi-striker.
All right, we'll see how it does. Shelty on the win streak up against Toronto, Tokyo. They've both got streaks here. Of course, Shelty has not taken a loss so far in this game. Much we saw of Vitality, who hadn't taken a loss in the tournament before the last game finished. This time round, Toronto will take control and get himself the win, pushing Shelty out of first.
Very big one for the overall tempo of the game right now. Vitality in control of 2 streaks now. Wolves only in control of one. And I have to say that Milk actually turns around his loss streak into a win streak. He's able to push out from the bottom with that newfound Syndra 2. And Toronto, Tokyo keeps pushing at the top of the stand. We've been talking so much about, Cass. This could be absolutely perfection for Vitality.
Yeah, 100%. In Toronto, Tokyo, I love pushing to 7 on the 3-2, recognizing that your opponent is in your pool with the win streak, but you have level up. This is your advantage. You can push that level a little bit quicker.
And as we saw earlier in the game here as well, right? One of the players of Vitality had to go away from this Kog'Maw line. Meanwhile, K-Free Soju has stayed on with the Bird Treasures in towards that featherweights. A lot of item economy, as well as extra stats for those 2 important backline characters, Tristana and in the Kog'Maw.
Yeah, we know the Kog'Maw definitely hasn't been performing in the stats overall, but I wanted to kind of bring that back into the conversation, you know, Cass, particularly. We know, of course, not all 4 members of your team can get into the top 4 at any given game, or likely that to be the case. How important is it to have a player who's playing there for the 5th and 6th kind of position?
Well, and that's been the Kog'Maw role pretty frequently. We've seen a lot of 8th places from Kog'Maw, but generally that's contested. And the other side is a Kog'Maw player finding like a 6th or a 5th, and that is such a big 5th or 6th that you can find. So really for Soju in this game, yes, he's been the star, he's been the ace for this team. He's playing he's the role player in this. He's playing the Kog'Maw. He's just looking for the highest placement he can get, trying to grief out any other 2-cost rerollers.
And again, I like the fact you're highlighting the fact that now it's Soju's turn to be the role player, right? Just showcasing the versatility of this Vitality team. Just again, good spot recognition, having familiarity with all the lines and what they're supposed to be doing in that 4v4 format, Peter. But free Spatlas on the carousel.
We know what this can mean long term, especially since we got, level up and the like in the mix to allow easier access to some of those big verticals. One of the spatulas gets left behind, but 2 get taken. So we've now got a new confounding factor for the game.
That was a Cassidon free at the bottom of our screens as being brought into focus here as well. One of the prismatic tickets really paying off here now. That 8 loss streak from YGQF here could be about to be turned around into a huge win streak instead.
So the big difference with this Cassidon 3 versus the last one we've seen, 2 econ augments in this lobby so far for this pickup, only on 43 health instead of that full streak with 3 combat augs.
It's also worth noting that in the prismatics here in Magic and Mayhem, there is not a lot of combat power in the prismatics at all, so it is not as much of an issue having that non-combat augment in the first here compared to a triple gold lobby, for example.
Yeah, we can just see a few little bits and pieces, especially going from prismatic down to silver. We'll see what's coming up next for us as well. Toronto, Tokyo maintaining the streak for Vitality. Is a little bit of hurt here. It looks like the front lines having actually a bit of trouble. It might actually be the drop here. Li Xiao carrying the win streak for the Wolves as Toronto drops his.
Yeah, Toronto finally has to give his up to Milk, who has turned around that loss streak into a 3-win now. I think it's not necessarily the worst time for Toronto Tokyo to lose it. Of course, we'd love to just see him win forever, but at a certain point, right, finding ways for the rest of your teammates to claw back in, and I think Milk needs to win here after going on that loss streak. He needs to convert it into a win streak.
So worth noting here, Toronto Tokyo wasn't above the 50 gold point, is above 40, so will relatively easily only miss out on like 1 goal in terms of like the economy aspect of it all so far, but definitely not ideal. Losing your streaks when you are above 50, generally speaking, doesn't hurt as much when you're trying to regain and recoup that economy. But for now, it should still be a good spot to be in for Vitality.
Well, of course, remember Toronto Tokyo, the level up player, has definitely got a long-term game plan, so hopefully we'll be able to recover longer term himself. Li Xiao on a 5-round win streak. Of course, we can see the Syndra board with the Gambler's Blade is doing a lot of work. Also, the Tamkench run the center there, leaking goal out round after round. That's a massive amount of value.
Yeah, the combination of the win streak here alongside just the gold coming through from the Shimmer Scale Armory, absolutely huge here as well. But another thing to talk about as well, Casanova, we've been talking so much about this level of game plan here, but Toronto Tokyo, level 8, 50 gold, level up in the bank here, will have a ton of time to figure out, do you want to sag a little bit to get towards the level 9 roll down there instead?
Yeah, I mean, win streaking with level up is such a luxury to be in, right? Being able to actually use your HP as a resource and find those very, very big caps. So Toronto Tokyo is still one of the players we're looking for to win out. Li Xiao also very rich. We see a lot of this coming off of a Tom Kench 2 on level 6. Such a big pickup to go with the Vanguards. And eventually found that Syndra 5 copies, potentially trying to roll it down, only still staying on level 6, but still denying Milk what he's looking for.
They want to bring the conversation back to Soju, though, because, as I said, we say he's being a role player in the team, someone who's maybe going to finish out towards, the upper end of the lower half, as Milk is starting to get very close to Syndra, almost up to 3-star.
He actually has it with the duplicator, but he doesn't want to spend that yet because it's a full duplicator, but we just see that charm pop up, lesser duplicator this time around, so he can save the full one for a better unit.
And even as well, with the prismatic ticket on top of that, he could have had a higher chance of hitting and also finding the Galio, for example, and then hitting that 1-2 punch. Instead, the 1-2 punch will be the Syndra free from that charm you're talking about into the level with the Nami. Get that Leviathan disruption in the mix on top of everything that's already going on here.
Milk now will also be able to threaten for potentially a first because Mordekaiser 3 is a big win con for this Syndra composition, especially if you're able to get the Syndra 3, Mordekaiser 3 combination. And he's already on 5 copies with the Champion Duplicator and the Prismatic Ticket, something we'll have to continue to have our eyes on.
Another kind of not necessarily super talked about off fact with having access to Prismatic Ticket is that once you hit your reroll, you're able to go level 8 very easily. And even on level 8, you're allowed to kind of donkey roll a lot more effectively with that there and hitting some of those other needed units to cap out, like that Karma 2 here, that almost could have made the difference for Li Xiao had it been the case he's found that.
All right, last augment is coming in. Let's see how much he can shake it up. We've had every type from Prismatic to Silver, now to Gold. As we look on the right-hand side, we can see Vitality in a good position overall.
Capricious Forge here, great tempo pickup as well on the side of the Vitality player here in Satsuko. Just a fantastic way of Toronto of just pushing the tempo right. It is such a powerful unit, especially on the frontliners.
Yeah, both players who are pushing levels, Shelty and Toronto, playing around Portal. However, Toronto, 50 gold, pushing to 9, will have so much easier access to that Nora even quicker to cap out the board so well. And he's already on the rise, whereas Shelty didn't have it just yet.
No, but Shelty yet again finds his old trusted faithful Portal emblem on board too. I know we had the deja vu in the last game, but this time it's an actual deja vu, a previous mirror image of what we saw in the first game from Shelty.
Well, in that first game, the full portal wasn't even necessary to win the game. But again, we are seeing the Wolves here. They are presenting their best foot forward. They're trying to clamp down on Vitality and get that second win.
And with so many players in super strong win-out positions, avoiding that 8th place is going to be so critical. And look what's going on at the bottom of the standings. The HP gaps for the Wolves players have to make up on Milk are huge.
Yeah, it's massive right now. Really looking at YGQF and Serene. They have to try and hold on. But the problem is the lowest health member of Vitality is Milk, and he is not weak. He has a very powerful board. It's not likely for him to free fall from this point. So then you have to start looking Setsuko, Toronto, are any of these players ones that we can start to try and lock in on and stop from getting out of their spots?
A little curious fact here as well right now. Every single Wolves player won their most recent fight on a win streak. Every single Vitality player currently has that blue flame burning towards their names right now. They are actually in losing positions as of the most recent round. But again, stage 4, one of the most critical parts of this game here. It's where the boards start to gap out, and it's where someone like Soju has to play spoiler.
We'll see. Soju definitely has been doing well. You can see on his bench, though, there's still a lot of 3-stars yet to arrive. Even if his decline for the game will be slow, he's currently in 3rd place overall. He has been doing well. The 4 chrono board is still very powerful, but the front line is going face to face.
Soju's definitely the one that they're going to have to lock in on. If you look at this board, he's playing into the Kog'Maw, still hasn't hit the Kog'Maw or the Tristana. He's found some of the front line. He has 1 duplicator, so he can get there, and he saved a lot of HP, but that is the weakest board Vitality has.
And we did see a Nunu in the shot for the play he was playing against as well, right? Again, I would like to see that being held onto the bench. There was no cost for any econ breakpoints here as well, but going on to the stage 4 carousel, there is a Camille on offer here, currently being guarded by these Wolves players while they're trying to figure out what they're going to be going for. But again, such a big carry-out wave for the Karma comes for the multi-striker players as well. So ensure that that doesn't go to the enemy team is a huge thing to keep in mind.
I do want to bring the conversation back to Soju for a second there, because we got a glimpse just before we came to Carousel that you said we saw the units in the shop which could be taken. There were also units on bench, I believe, for YGQF. So the call has gone out. Soju is the next target to bring down.
Toronto pivoting out of Portal, looking to potentially play around 5 costs. He's gone to 9. He has a Xerath to try and play around that he got off of the carousel. Looking for Nora 2. He finds some frontline on the roll down. Gwen 2 not going to be the biggest unit that you're looking for. Not finding any of these 5-cost upgrades. A little bit of a miss on this roll down. And we'll see if Toronto Tokyo can actually stabilize.
Preserver and Warriors for timing. We know this is a good composition. But for Toronto, currently lowest on the Vitality ladder, though they're all extremely close to each other. We'll see if this is good enough or if he needs more time to cook.
We've seen these Seraphs too be so important, so critical for these capped out boards to just rain down damage from above, but this time around, not going to be the option to play here for Toronto Tokyo. Fiora in the backline, as you're pointing out here, Peter, trying to avoid some of this critical damage going along. But again, it's a Fiora 1 here. This is a huge hit for Toronto Tokyo, losing an extra life as well. And YGQF here with that Kassadin free, also just running rampant at the bottom of the scoreboard.
Yeah, a good fast 9 roll down from Toronto Tokyo, however, not finding the carries for the upgrades. He found his front line, he found Nasus, he found Rakan. Really good hits, but not being able to 2-star a carry, and we've seen people trapped in this spot before. Gonna end up finding an upgrade for the Kalista, so at least some damage coming through, but the Fiora feels like the biggest thing that needs to be found. Morgana picked up to have that Preserver at the very least.
But also worth noting, you're looking at the itemization here for the Kalista. You're running a Guard Breaker, you're running a red buff. And while that does provide a ton of damage, you don't have that ramping into the fights. At the moment, multi-strikers aren't even activated. So that is a big if and a big issue, but the Akali tying it all together here is a critical find for Toronto Tokyo.
We have got good gloves. The Blacksmith's gloves are getting going to do a good amount of work on the front line, but again, the Fiora at the 1-star going to fall victim to Soju here. Toronto Tokyo looks like he might have to keep that loss streak intact.
Yeah, trying to deal with Soju's Kog'Maw board. It's still only level 6. However, Soju has actually hit now. He found the Nunu. He found the Kog'Maw, just not finding the Tristana, but that's kind of the least valuable unit. And this is actually a perfect loss for Vitality onto Soju, keeping Toronto Tokyo's health a little bit higher while they try and send YGQF to the bottom here in 8th with only 7 life remaining.
It's worth noting as well, right, the only combat augment, quote-unquote, that's available right now here for the Wolves player YGQF is the fact he has a multi-striker emblem, right, providing that extra healing when you get that 7 multi online. But he doesn't have any other combat to go alongside that. So if he goes 8th here for Toronto Tokyo, that is going to be a big win because he could be racing towards the bottom.
Yeah, the 8th place seems to be on the cards for the Wolves, but we look towards the top of the table and we can see Lisao and Shelty are in very good positions, particularly Lisao. He's got a ridiculous amount of HP left in the tank.
This is where it gets tough for Vitality because Toronto Tokyo is one of the players that was looking for a win out, and now his spot does not feel like it necessarily wins out unless he can find a ton of upgrades. So it kind of comes down to the shoulders of Milk. He's got 50 gold in the bank, level 7. Setzi as well, not having the full win out board ready, but a 2-star Morgana maybe he can start to lean on.
It's worth noting, Shelty was doing all that work without the Rise even in the mix there. Finds that Rise pair, really gets that onto the board now, able to get the Scholar on and easily get even more output from the likes of that Zoe on the back as well here. So another transition coming out here from Toronto, refiguring that front line.
Yeah, finding the upgrade onto the Fiora at the very least. Had to sell a couple of things to actually get there, losing out on the Nasus 2 that he had earlier, trying to actually kind of weaken the front line quite a bit to actually find these carries.
The Fiora is standing, though, in the face of an enormous amount of aggression. She's just about healing too. Callista isn't quite strong enough against the 3-star Syndra on the other side. We're taking the L's here, but we do have that elimination.
Soju able to take out YGQF, the Kog'Maw, coming out big, dealing with the multi-strikers.
Exactly, showing why we have seen such a big priority on this composition. It's such a good scrapper comp to kind of have in the mix. As long as you take someone else down with you, it doesn't matter if you don't make it to the top 4.
And Soju has another target in the sights. Serene is going to be at 15 life, 64 gold in the bank. That's the next Wolf on the chopping block. Toronto, Tokyo in danger as well as we look at Lisao. Still looking for Syndra 3 on 6 copies. Very strong Vanguard front line. But the cap of Milk is actually a little bit higher, right? 3-star Syndra already was pushing towards the 3-star Mordekaiser as well, and Milk might be able to get it done.
Yeah, I was wondering if we might see Vitality with a numbers advantage be able to find someone to pick on. This is an opportunity knocking here. Toronto on the right-hand side, though. The level up has been pushing through, but level 9 seems to be the limit. Keep your eye on that Fiora, who's right in the middle of the pack. It's going to be a tough one to survive through, but she does punch onto the back line.
A big thing to note here as well for Toronto is I feel like we haven't seen him play against someone that is not on his team after he has been stabilizing, as he's been going fast. So we haven't gotten a full-on read of how much damage he's actually going to be able to inflict on towards these Wolves, especially now with Lisao taking a loss here against Serene, ensuring that now this battle for this 7th position will still be an absolutely critical one. Again, a situation we saw yesterday in the Ultra game, one round coming up here could change the entirety of the scope. You're looking at 4 players at 16 HP or less.
And the danger is 3 of them are Vitality players that are kind of in danger. Now, their boards are strong enough that you don't expect them to drop here, but it can just be one bad fight and they're out, and then Wolves win the series from there. So you have to be watching. Serene, Vitality needs Serene to go down to ensure that they can at least try and fight for those top 4 spots. Try and send that 7-8.
Keep your eye on Toronto on the right-hand side of the screen. The Morgana 2 has recently come in. Blacksmith's Gloves again performing well, but so much is on that Fiora. Finding the correct targets, dancing through the fight, and not getting taken out early on. She is spending some time being CC'd, getting focused by the Syndra. Doesn't drop particularly quickly. I think this should be good enough to keep Toronto alive at least.
Yeah, the Morgana just anchoring the front line, trying to hold on, having those capricious gloves from the Forge. The Blacksmith Gloves being so strong. Toronto Tokyo finds a win. Serene hits Shelty very hard. Nobody going down just yet as Setzi survives on 1 life.
Woo! That is going to be huge here as well. But also another thing about that fight for Toronto, right? This Callista was just unbothered for the entirety of the fight. The Leviathans were going on to the different corner as well. So strong positioning game here coming out from Toronto Tokyo.
And I do want to update the kind of situation we were talking about before when we had 2 of the Wolves dominating the top of the table. That's no longer the case. Milk has managed to punch into the top 2 on a win streak. We're starting to see some hopeful signs here for Vitality to draw the series even.
Incredibly close game still. 2 members of Vitality at the bottom. Serene holding on, looking quite powerful. Setsuko is going to be on that single life remaining. Going to have to try and hold on for 1 more placement.
Yeah, but important to note here as well was the fact he picked up a Spear of Shojin from the carousel here, either accelerating the damage of Nora or accelerating the disruption from that Nami. That should be a massive pickup here as well for him, but again, matchmaking will be so important.
Milk also hitting that Mordekaiser 3, having the best opportunity to win out for Vitality, which is so massive to have.
We'll see how it does against on Lisao on the left-hand side of your screen. Setsuko, the only player we know for sure will definitely get eliminated if he loses this round. But you can see the front line is absolutely enormous.
Double Talisman of Ascension on the Morgana for Toronto Tokyo. If they can actually pop, that should be a fight win. The problem is the Morgana is falling very fast. One more cast stays alive a little longer. She pops! She gets the cast off. Toronto Tokyo
survives.
will be able to survive and deal tons of damage to Shelty.
That's amazing news.
That is incredibly huge as well, right? Because we were talking about the matchmaking here, but there were no Vitality team kills in this situation, right? They were going up against Wolves players, but now 2 Vitality players on 1 life. Shelter's talking about has the high cap with the 10 portal being an option now, but all the way down to just 10 HP.
If we've got the 2 1 HP members, surely Soju's got to be the one who drops out here if you've got to choose between the 2.
Does feel that way. Setsuko might still be able to find room to improve this board. Feels like the Kog'Maw has kind of run its course in this game, and unfortunately, that might just be a 6th or 7th place. Going up against Shelty, it's the Portal versus the Kog'Maw.
That is going to be incredibly hard to win. Soju's been doing absolutely valiant work, as you mentioned before, sacrificing his own game strength to make sure the team stays on top. Certainly adheres to what we've heard about him as a player from before. If he can just hold on, he's held on for a decent amount of time on the right-hand side. We're seeing if anyone else goes through. Wait, is Soju going to win the round?
It's very close, the Rumble, but the Tristana gets taken out by a Golem. It's not able to get there against Shelty, and Setsuko goes down as well. 2 Vitality members falling. Toronto Tokyo also goes down.
It's
and
over.
The Wolves have taken out Vitality.
They've gone from undefeated to losing their semi-final 0-2. The Wolves strike and tear at the jugular. This one is over. I don't think anybody expected this result.
Huge, huge win here for the Chinese side. The ultimate underdogs going into the entire event takes down the NA super team of Vitality. Opening up now for a full-on Eastern TFT finals now. I mean, Casanova, does this just mean that China is just the best region in the world?
I mean, it's insane. Usually they're contesting with the Americas for that title, but they always put the most teams in the top 8 of the championship. They have so much depth to the region that even the underdog team from CN, the Wolves, can bring themselves all the way to the finals of the EWC in such a close game here, even though they put 3 players in the top 4. This came down to 1 or 2 rounds of combat.
It was still very well played from Vitality, but yeah, the Wolves have absolutely shown up and shown off. Of course, we have got T1 go up against Twisted Minds as our second semi-finals. We don't know for sure it will be all Chinese, but right now, the Wolves, they're not just looking strong in this series, they're looking like strong contenders for the tournament.
You can see the stress on the faces of Team Vitality, Toronto Tokyo. Taking this loss hard, this team felt like they were the favorites. They were playing so incredibly well. 6-0 in dominant fashion, never dropping the first place in any of their games coming into this series. They had so much confidence, so much skill, so much practice in this 4v4, and just not able to get it done here, not able to get it over the finish line, which has been the struggle for Soju, for Setsuko, for all of these players, is getting that final push. They've made it so far in Champ. Setsuko, top 8. Couldn't get it over the line. So many of them making it so deep and not being able to find that win.
It was always going to be 3 short games away, in this case 2 short games away from elimination. Here in the playoff stages, there are no second chances. Widom, from what you've seen from the Wolves so far, how confident are you for them in the finals against the potential of T1 or Twisted Minds?
If we take the match against potential of T1, right? T1 really wrote the book on how so many teams have played this 4v4 format after facing them in scrims here, but the Wolves seems like they have perfected that playbook, just going all out in their most recent few series.
We saw on the face of Toronto the struggles, but if you look just past, you can see a smile on Soju's face, and I think even with the disappointment of all of this, they're happy with how they played. They're proud of what they did, and they should be very proud of what they accomplished here at the EWC. Really proving a lot of people wrong. Soju being kind of an MVP for his team, and still making it all the way to the semifinals is such a phenomenal feat in such a stacked field.
No, it's absolutely no small thing. We started with the 16 teams. We had a group stage that was incredibly brutal to get through as well. you know, for them to come into the semi-finals, as I would say the favorites of the entire tournament, is still something they can take with them, even if the end isn't what they would have wanted.
Big for Serain, the one who had to hold the line at 15 HP, the one keeping Wolves from potentially falling in that 7th, 8th, actually may have fully stabilized into finding a first in this game as we're watching this Karma and Nasus combo together just create magic for this Wolves team. Many of them being able to have their hero story. Serain not being one of the players who has been the hero for many of the games. It's been Lee Sao, it's been Shelty, it's been YGQF when he gets Syndra, but this time Serain being the one coming up big.
I like how when the game is still for Melody, like they're still just ensuring that their team play is completely perfect here, right? Shelty picking up that desperate play and then ensuring that Serain's win streak stays intact. Stuff like, again, just like these small things, like they've been on top of these since the first series that they played at EWC, right? I think that this was a team that the second you saw them step onto the server, we were very surprised to see just how clean they were in their gameplay. But they proved us wrong time and time again, and now they find themselves in the grand finals.
No, I think you're absolutely right. You can't let that slip, even when the guarantee of the victory is there. Certainly, you know, they're going to be waiting through this second semi-final as well, knowing that their spot is secured, not knowing who their opponent is going to be for certain until the final bell rings. Still, though, for Milk, he just gets to sit in here for the rest of the lobby just to try and retire from hit this point with dignity.
There we go, Milk going up against Serain. Pretty much the winner of this fight should probably win the lobby at this point. Milk being able to put together that Syndra 3, Mordekaiser 3, playing the prismatic ticket spot beautifully. Now it's just, can he defeat Serain and walk away, head held high with another first place for Vitality. It looks like he will be able to get there. Milk able to take out Serain, and it's just a matter of can he deal with Shelty as well, but I think we know the answer to that one.
I mean, you know, Cass, of course, you have the great knowledge of bringing the NA side of things. You know, as a team, okay, we're going to be calling it out there.